There's a Sunday morning when you're making coffee and someone asks what you're doing today, and you freeze, not because you don't have plans, but because you realize you don't know what you actually want to do. Your mind goes blank, or worse, it fills with what you think you should want. Be productive, work on that project, catch up on tasks, finally organize that closet. But underneath all of that is a question you can't quite answer. What do I actually care about? Not what looks good, not what pays the bills, not what people expect. What matters to me? And when you can't find an answer, when the silence stretches too long and you just shrug and say nothing much, there's a hollow feeling that settles in your chest, a weight, because it's not just about today, it's about every day. You wake up, go through the motions, check the boxes, fulfill the obligations, and somewhere in the middle of it all, you lost the thread, the sense that you're moving towards something, that your life means something, that you have a purpose. And without that, everything feels a little emptier, a little more exhausting, like you're running on a treadmill that goes nowhere, burning energy but never actually arriving. This emptiness doesn't stay confined to Sunday mornings, it bleeds into everything. At work, you sit at your desk doing tasks that pay the bills but don't light anything up inside you. Your coworker talks excitedly about a new project and you can't relate. It's just work, just something to get through, just another thing on the list. At home, people ask about your goals, your dreams, what you're working toward, and you deflect. "I'm figuring it out," you say. But you're not. You're waiting for clarity, waiting for some sign, some voice, some lightning bolt moment where it all clicks into place and you finally know what you're supposed to be doing with your life. In relationships, you notice you're going through the motions there too. You're present, but not really there. People talk about their passions, their plans, what excites them, and you feel envious, but also lost. How did they know? How did they figure it out? And why does everyone else seem to have direction, purpose, a North Star, while you're just existing? Marcus, a software developer in his early 30s, described it this way: "I have a good job, I'm not unhappy, I pay my bills, but I also don't feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do, and I have no idea what that even is, so I just keep showing up, hoping it'll reveal itself eventually." But it doesn't. The years pass, and the waiting gets heavier. The emptiness gets louder. This feeling, this sense of being adrift without purpose, often starts earlier than you realize. As children, most of us weren't asked what felt meaningful to us. We were asked what we wanted to be when we grew up, and the answers were supposed to be careers: doctor, teacher, astronaut, lawyer. Nobody asked, what kind of person do you want to become? What values matter to you? What feels true to your nature? Instead, you learned that purpose was something external, a job, a title, a role, something you achieve, not something you embody. And if you were good at something, math, writing, sports, music, adults pushed you toward it, not because it lit you up, but because it was practical, because it had a clear path, because it led somewhere respectable. So you followed the path. You did what you were good at, not what called to you. And maybe that worked for a while. Maybe you were successful by most measures. But now, years later, you're competent, stable, financially okay, and still feel like something fundamental is missing. Because you built a life based on what you could do, not on who you are. You optimized for achievement, for external markers of success, not for alignment. And alignment is what purpose actually is. It's not a destination, it's not a single grand mission, it's not climbing a mountain. It's the feeling that what you're doing resonates with something deep inside you, that your life reflects your values, your nature, your truth, that the way you spend your days feels consistent with who you actually are. Carl Jung, the psychologist, talked about archetypes, universal patterns of being that exist across cultures and time. The caregiver, the warrior, the creator, the sage, the explorer, the lover, the ruler. These aren't roles you choose from a menu. They're patterns you already embody, often without realizing it. Your purpose isn't something you find out there in the world. It's something you uncover within by recognizing the archetype or combination of archetypes that resonate with your core nature. When you're living in alignment with your archetype, work doesn't feel like drudgery. Relationships feel more genuine. Decisions become clearer. Not because life gets easier, but because you're acting from a place of authenticity rather than obligation. You're not performing someone else's idea of who you should be. You're expressing who you actually are. The problem is, most people have been conditioned to ignore their archetype in favor of what's expected, what's safe, what pays well, what looks impressive. And that disconnection, that split between who you are and how you're living, is what creates the emptiness. The sense that you're missing something, the feeling that your life doesn't quite fit. Here's how it shows up now, in the small daily ways that most people miss. At work, you're competent but disengaged. You do the job well enough, meet the deadlines, get decent reviews, but there's no spark, no sense that what you're doing matters beyond the paycheck. You watch people who love what they do, who get energized by it, who talk about it with genuine excitement, and you feel jealous, not of their success, but of their engagement. They found something, you haven't. So you keep searching online. You take personality tests, read articles about finding purpose, watch videos promising to reveal your calling in 7 steps. But nothing sticks, nothing lands, because you're looking for an answer outside yourself when the answer is already inside, buried under years of conditioning, shoulds, and expectations. In friendships, you feel most alive when certain themes come up. Maybe you light up when someone needs support. You're naturally the one who listens, who holds space, who helps people feel seen and less alone. That's the caregiver archetype emerging. Or maybe you come alive in conflict resolution, in standing up for what's right, in protecting the vulnerable, or challenging injustice. That's the warrior. Or maybe you're happiest when you're creating, writing, designing, building something new, bringing an idea into form. That's the creator. But you dismiss these moments. You think, that's just who I am. It's not important. It's not a purpose. When in reality, those moments are showing you your archetype. Your purpose isn't separate from these patterns. It's woven into them. It's been there all along. At home, alone, the emptiness is loudest. You scroll through social media and see people living bold, meaningful lives, or at least that's how it looks. They're starting businesses, traveling, creating art, advocating for causes, building communities. And you think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? Why don't I have that clarity? But the problem isn't that you're broken or behind, it's that you've been taught to look for purpose in the wrong places. You've been taught it's a job, a mission statement, a single defining thing you do that makes you special. But purpose is simpler and more complex than that. It's living in a way that's true to your nature. It's recognizing the themes that run through your life, the moments when you feel most yourself, and leaning into them instead of dismissing them as irrelevant. When you ignore your archetype, when you try to fit into a mold that doesn't match your nature, life feels flat, exhausting, meaningless. When you honor it, even small actions feel meaningful. Because you're not performing, you're expressing. But here's the reframe. You don't need to discover some grand, life-changing, world-saving purpose. You're not missing a piece. You're not behind. The patterns are already there. The clues are in what energizes you, what angers you, what breaks your heart, what you can't stop thinking about, what you do even when no one's watching. Your purpose isn't hiding in some far-off place waiting for you to find it. You've just been taught to overlook it because it doesn't fit the narrative of what purpose is supposed to look like. It doesn't have to be world-changing. It doesn't have to be your career. It can be quiet, it can be relational, it can be creative. It can be about how you show up in the world, not what you achieve. The caregiver's purpose isn't to cure disease. It's to nurture, to hold space, to help people feel less alone. The warrior's purpose isn't to win wars. It's to protect, to stand for justice, to challenge what's wrong. The creator's purpose isn't fame or recognition. It's to make, to express, to bring something into being that wasn't there before. When you stop chasing some mythical capital P purpose and start honoring the patterns already in your life, everything shifts. Not overnight, but gradually, deeply. So how do you find your archetype? How do you move from emptiness to alignment? It starts with small, intentional practices that help you see what's already there. First, look at what consistently energizes you. Not what you're good at, not what makes money, not what impresses people. What gives you energy? When do you lose track of time? When do you feel most like yourself? When do you finish an activity and feel more alive, not more drained? Emma, a project manager in her late 20s, realized she felt most alive not in meetings or spreadsheets or status updates, but in one-on-one conversations where someone opened up to her. She thought this was just being friendly, just small talk, but it was her caregiver archetype showing her where her purpose lived, in connection, in holding space, in helping people feel less alone. Write down 5 moments in the last month when you felt truly engaged. Not happy necessarily, engaged, alive, present. Look for the pattern. Is it when you're helping someone, creating something, learning something new, leading a group, solving a problem? The pattern is the clue, the thread that runs through your life, connecting the dots you didn't realize were connected. Second, notice what makes you angry or breaks your heart. Your anger and your grief point to your values, and your values reveal your archetype. If injustice makes you furious, if you can't stand seeing people treated unfairly, silenced, exploited, you likely have warrior energy. If waste or inefficiency bothers you deeply, if you can't stand seeing potential squandered, you might be a builder or organizer. If seeing people's potential go unrealized breaks your heart, if you feel grief when someone gives up on themselves, you might be a mentor or guide. Jake, a lawyer in his mid-30s, hated his corporate job but couldn't articulate why until he noticed what upset him most: people being silenced, agreements broken, power abused, the vulnerable being crushed by systems. His warrior archetype was suffocating in a role that prioritized profit over justice, efficiency over ethics. When he shifted to advocacy work, working with a nonprofit defending tenants' rights, the emptiness lifted. Not because the work was easier, it wasn't, but because it aligned with who he actually was. What consistently bothers you? What makes you want to act, to intervene, to change something? Write it down. Then ask, what does that say about what I value, about who I am at my core? Third, identify when you feel like a fraud. The feeling of being a fraud, of wearing a mask, of playing a role, often means you're living out of alignment with your archetype. You're playing a part that doesn't fit your nature. Sarah, a marketing executive in her early 40s, felt like a fraud every single day. She was good at her job, she got promoted regularly, people respected her, but she couldn't shake the sense that she was pretending, that any moment someone would see through her. When she looked closer, she realized her creator archetype was being suppressed. Marketing felt manipulative to her, like she was selling things people didn't need. She wanted to make things, not sell things. When she started a small pottery business on the side, just for herself, the fraud feeling eased. Not because pottery was her purpose in some grand sense, but because creating, working with her hands, bringing form to clay, aligned with her nature. Where do you feel like a fraud? Where do you feel like you're performing instead of being? That discomfort is information. It's telling you something's misaligned, something's off. Fourth, ask what you'd do if no one was watching. If there were no audience, no approval, no money, no recognition, no Instagram likes, what would you still do? That's where your archetype lives. Marcus realized he'd still write. Not for publication, not for followers, not for validation, just because he had things to work out on the page. That was his creator energy expressing itself even when no one cared. Others realized they'd still help people, still solve problems, still stand up for what's right, still explore new places, still learn new things. The things you do anyway, The things that feel necessary even when no one's paying attention, even when there's no reward, those are your clues. Spend a week noticing what you do when no one's watching, when there's no external pressure. The patterns will emerge, and those patterns are your archetype calling. Fifth, look at your recurring struggles. Your struggles aren't random. They're often you bumping up against the edges of your unexpressed archetype. If you keep burning out, maybe your caregiver is giving too much and needs to learn boundaries, needs to realize that nurturing includes nurturing yourself. If you keep quitting things, walking away from jobs or projects, maybe your explorer needs more freedom and less structure, more variety and less routine. If you keep getting into conflicts, if tension follows you, maybe your warrior needs a cause worth fighting for, instead of fighting everything, instead of picking battles that don't matter. Liam kept leaving jobs after a year. He thought he was flaky, unreliable, unable to commit. But when he looked closer, he realized he was an explorer archetype stuck in rigid corporate structures that demanded repetition and predictability. He didn't need to stop moving. He needed work that honored his need for variety, autonomy, and discovery. Freelancing solved the problem, not because it was easy, but because it fit his nature. What pattern keeps repeating in your life? What keeps showing up no matter where you go or what you do? Look at it through the lens of archetype. What might it be trying to tell you? What part of you is trying to be expressed? Sixth, experiment with small embodiments. You don't need to quit your job or overhaul your life or make some dramatic change. Start small. If you think you're a creator, create something this week. A drawing, a poem, a meal, a piece of music. Doesn't matter what. Just make something. If you think you're a caregiver, find one small way to nurture someone or yourself. Cook a good meal. Send a thoughtful message. Sit with someone who needs to talk. If you're a warrior, stand up for something. Even if it's just calling out a comment that didn't sit right, even if it's just setting a boundary you've been avoiding. If you're a sage, spend time learning something that fascinates you, something with no practical application. These small acts won't solve everything. They won't give you clarity overnight, but they'll give you data. Does this feel right? Does it give you energy? Or does it feel forced, performative, empty? Your body will tell you. Your nervous system will tell you. Purpose isn't a thought you think your way into. It's a felt sense, a resonance. And you find it by trying things and paying attention to what resonates, what feels true, what makes you feel more like yourself. Seventh, stop waiting for certainty. The myth is that purpose arrives as a clear, lightning bolt moment where everything makes sense and you suddenly know exactly what you're supposed to do with your life. For some people, maybe, but for most, it's quieter. It's a gradual recognition, a slow uncovering, a series of small realizations that add up over time. You don't need to know your life's purpose to start living more aligned. You just need to take one step toward what feels true, then another. The clarity comes from movement, not from sitting and thinking. You can't figure out your purpose from your head. You have to live your way into it. Try things. Notice what lights you up. Adjust. Try again. Purpose isn't something you discover once and have forever. It's something you return to again and again as you evolve. Over time, as you honor your archetype instead of ignoring it, as you make choices that align with your nature instead of fighting it, life starts to feel different. Not perfect, not without challenges or struggles, but more coherent, more aligned, more true. Work might stay the same, but you relate to it differently. You see how your archetype can express itself even in tasks that aren't your dream job. Or you might shift towards something that fits better. Either way, you're not waiting anymore. You're living. Relationships shift too. Some people won't understand the changes, and that's okay. New people enter who resonate with who you're becoming. Internally, the constant hum of "is this it?" quiets. Not because you've found some ultimate answer, some finish line, but because you're living in a way that feels true. You're making choices based on your nature, not on what you think you should do. And that alignment, even in small doses, is what purpose actually feels like. It's not euphoria. It's not constant happiness. It's rightness. It's the sense that you're where you're supposed to be, doing what you're meant to do, even if it's messy, even if it's not glamorous, even if no one else understands. The Sunday morning when you froze at the question, "What are you doing today?" wasn't proof that you're lost or broken. It was a moment of recognition, a signal that you've been living someone else's version of your life, that you've been so focused on what you should do that you forgot to ask what you want to do. But wanting isn't frivolous, and purpose isn't some far-off destination you'll reach if you just work hard enough, achieve enough, sacrifice enough. It's already in you, in the patterns, in the moments when you feel most alive, in the things that anger you, move you, call to you. Your purpose isn't to become someone else, it's to become more fully yourself, to recognize your archetype and stop apologizing for it, to build a life that honors your nature instead of fighting it. That's not selfish, that's survival. It's the difference between performing a life and living one, and you deserve to live. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more videos on psychology, purpose, and the inner work that actually leads somewhere. Drop a comment and tell me, what patterns have you noticed in your life? What do you think your archetype might be? I read every one.